Hi and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Grace, and today I will say once again two words that I probably repeat a lot of times. In moderation. Even salt. Just like no one likes a salty person, your body also does not like salty foods. Let's dive into it. Salt is pretty important, and I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm pretty terrible at using salt to season my food, and here's my reason. I genuinely forget. Like, there's so many other things to do when you're cooking. It's like the last I forget. It just whoosh goes by. But let me tell you a few things that I learned about, which might also change your mind because it changed my mind about how I use salt. So if you're like me, where you are barely using any salt, or if you're on the complete opposite spectrum, where you like to put salt on seasoning as everything, hear me out. First, let's go why salt is essential. Maybe you've heard of NaCl, sodium chloride. This is a chemical compound for salt, but let me break down those two separately. First is Na, sodium. You have sodium, which is important for nerve and muscle functions that help to regulate fluids in the body. It controls blood pressure and volume. On the other hand, there's chloride. This is an important electrolyte that is an essential mineral maintaining key body functions. Chloride helps to regulate blood pH and pressure, as well as produce stomach acid, which is hydrogen chloride, hence the chloride there. Maybe you've heard of Gatorade, a great source of electrolytes as they like to market and advertise it. After you work out and get a nice sweat in, like drinking a nice cold Gatorade, they always have said that for so long. I don't know if you tried licking your sweat after you work out, but yeah, it's a little salty. Not that I'm advocating for Gatorade, but the whole concept is great in terms of balancing your electrolyte after you lose so much through physical exercise. Most obvious too is that salt is great at balancing the body's fluids and waters that we hold on to. However, too much sodium is not good either. It can lead to hypertension or high blood pressure that can eventually lead to heart disease, kidney disease, or stroke down the line. It also causes bloating. This is because salt naturally will want and hold on to water. So when you eat something salty, you end up drinking a lot of water, and then your body starts to retain that water, so that number-wise, it'll appear as if you gained weight. But that's all just water mass. In the same way, you also probably have to pee more since you drank a lot of water, which is not the best feeling in the world. When you're not supposed to be peeing, or like you're in a situation where you don't want to. And it can also disrupt your sleep, from restlessness and waking up frequently in the night to use the bathroom. Here's a little bit of biology if you're interested. When there's too much salt in your blood, water will move out of your cells to balance out the salt. Does osmosis ring a bell? Yeah, and so because of that, you might also start to feel weaker and bloated. So what is a nice sweet spot of how much sodium and salt you should be consuming? The recommended is no more than 2,300 milligrams daily, but on average, a person usually consumes around 3,500. Now, who in the world is going around like calculating and measuring how much sodium they intake? I mean, sure, you can, but it's a lot of work and honestly quite unnecessary. Instead, here are a few ideas of how you can be more mindful about your salt intake and be more careful. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Whole foods, again, are naturally low on salt. Of course, a sprinkle of salt on your meat and veggies before you throw it into the oven or the air fryer is a really great idea to enhance flavor. But you can also use other spices such as pepper, turmeric, cinnamon, lemon, cayenne, paprika, the list goes on and on and on. You don't have to eat your food super plain. There's so many different seasonings out there. I mean, go to Trader Joe's, right? There's just aisles and aisles of like seasoning and nice containers that you can get your hands on. While we're on this topic of salt, let's quickly touch on some of the different ones that are available and also give you advice on which one to choose. First, we have table salt, probably the most frequently used, heard about. You see it in the shakers at restaurants. Table salt is highly refined as it's fortified with iron, bleached, and free of trace elements. It's created by heating natural salt at very, very high temperature, which takes away, unfortunately, a lot of beneficial compounds that you would want to consume. They also contain additives, which slows down moisture absorption, so that's why it's like really easy to sprinkle it over like your fries. So, not the healthiest option. Second, we have sea salt, and as its name says, it is from the sea. It's found in the ocean, and it's less refined compared to table salt. But pollution is becoming a significant problem, and so it might be a good idea to be a little bit more cautious about consuming too much sea salt. Third is iodized salt, which contains iodine, as its name suggests. This is a mineral found in dairy, seafood, grains, and eggs. Iodized salt helps with reducing iron deficiency, boosting thyroid function, and helping metabolism. So it's a pretty good alternative. Himalayan pink salt comes from the Himalayan mountains. The pink color comes from the rich iron content. Pink salt is great as it helps with reducing muscle cramps, promoting blood sugar health, and balancing pH. This by far is probably the healthiest choice and most accessible, because now let me touch into some of the more exotic salt options that are great but may be harder to find. First, we have gray and fleur de sel. First, there's gray and fleur de sel salt. I'm really sorry if I butchered that pronunciation, but yes, it's from France. And there's also red and black salt from Hawaii. They have each their own distinct benefits, but as they're a little bit more difficult to acquire and harder to obtain because they require manual effort, they will possibly be more harder to find in stores and probably on the expensive side. You may have heard of garlic salt and garlic powder. Garlic salt helps with enhancing blood flow to regulate blood pressure levels, but garlic salt is definitely the healthier option since it does not contain as much sodium as does garlic salt would. When you're deciding which salt you want to get, it is important to look and consider the amount of refinedness. I personally recommend pink salt followed by iodized salt, and then garlic powder, etc, etc. But feel free to use a salt that is easily accessible and you enjoy the taste of, even if it's just a little sprinkle. I admit again, I am not the best at using salt to season my foods, but after learning all of these benefits and being careful about not using too much, yeah, you should too. Definitely enhances a lot of flavor, and it's also really pretty. I got this one from Trader Joe's the other day. The Trader Joe's pink salt crystals. They're very fun to, crack into your foods. And so yes, give it a try. Don't eat too much, but always, everything in moderation is a-okay. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. And as always, why don't you give it a little sprinkle?